All right, ladies and gentlemen, coin hunters of all ages, this is the midweek edition of the Pocket Change Market Report for October 12th, 2022. Exciting video to talk about. We have some new stuff that we haven't normally talked about, or maybe it's been quite a while since we've revisited some errors and varieties that we speak of, but we're going to talk about it, including probably one of the craziest looking bicentennial quarters that you will ever lay eyes on. And it's very unassuming. I mean, you could easily miss it, and based off of its condition, it's not going to particularly wow anyone when it comes to the grade, but that's okay. Just being able to find this coin with this error, yeah, I'm throwing a little bit of a carrot out there for you, is going to be marquee. And it's part of the success of cherry picking and hunting for some of these coins. Now, I said cherry picking and hunting, and that's exactly how a lot of these coins came to be. Viewers like yourselves, people like myself, we go out and we actually hunt for these coins. Whether that's going through massive amounts of change, doing the daring thing and breaking apart your kid's piggy bank to look for some of these. I mean, I'm guilty of that once, but, I made sure the next piggy bank I bought actually has a compartment that I could open. So, moving on. But also, coin roll hunting is another big activity. The practice of going to your local bank, picking up some of these sealed rolls or customer wrap rolls, and simply searching through them for free, easy tendies like you're going to see today is another way. But also, we cannot forget the art of cherry picking. There's a number of you out there that are quite good at it. Adam Chambers. But anyways, yeah, cherry picking your local coin shop or auctions is another great way to add what is normally pretty pricey errors and varieties into your collection for a much smaller price. And that's what happens when they're unattributed. You could generally get a really good deal. But also, you could resell these. There are people that actually make a living doing such a thing. And the final, most important aspect to this, it's all raw graded coins. Ungraded. Sorry, not graded, ungraded coins. We actually do a graded compendium to the PCMR, usually about once or twice a month, depending on how I feel. We're probably due for one here real soon. But we do a separate graded edition of the Pocket Change Market Report. Again, it's not really necessary because in hindsight, these errors and varieties simply sell for themselves. And that's kind of like the high point to it all. It's a relatively low budget proposition that anyone can do. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the most recent current sales within the last, I would say, 48 hours. We have a pretty nice list here for your Wednesday. First things first. I mean, this is a pretty cool coin, but it is not without its warts. 1908, Philadelphia Indian head cent. I mean, check the reverse out. There seems to be some sort of corrosion damage right there in the middle of the coin. I mean, you certainly can't ignore that, but as a cherry picker, as a hunter and gatherer of these type of coins, would you honestly, would that be a deal breaker with you? No, it shouldn't, because people do love the damaged coins. It represents an opportunity to either add a rare error, which, an error that is pretty tough to find can be on a damaged coin. And sometimes that's the only way to own one. So this one right here is actually really neat. This one has a misplaced date, which is quite common. On the older Indian head cents, all of the digits of the date were actually punched individually onto the working die. On this particular instance, the mint employees did something quite interesting back in the day. They would actually do the number punch in certain areas of the coin, like here in the denticles. So you can see the top of what could be either a 0 or an 8 right there. That's a common misplacement of some of the digits, but they actually test the hardness of certain devices on the coin. All right, so it's common practice again to see that. Sometimes they'll punch a digit into the beads here of Liberty's neck is another common place. But you also have quite a few repunch dates as well. So you'll see repunching of 1, 2, 3 numbers, maybe all the numbers on the date. The Indian Head Scent series is rife with a bunch of different varieties, and a certain individual by the name of Rick Snow is the main attributor of a lot of these coins. So you'll probably refer to a few of these varieties as Snow number, X, a certain number, because they've been attributed by that particular expert in the field. So as far as value, this one sold for $82.96. The coin is a very common date. I would imagine that it was probably picked up for a really good price, maybe 15, 20 bucks, based off of the condition alone. I mean, I would say if it wasn't for the corrosion on the reverse, it would be a solid AU and higher. I have no doubt in my mind, which is a very attractive grade to the people that collect these. The next one that we have here is one that looks like it was plucked right out of change. It's a 1982 P. It's got a little P mint mark there above the date. Roosevelt dime. Pretty crazy. This is, the seller actually said that this is off-center, but you'll notice that the obverse, or the front of the coin, is off-center, but the reverse is perfectly centered. So this wouldn't really be classified as an off-center strike. It is, however, something called a misaligned dies strike, where the obverse die it was offset a little bit due to probably some wear and tear, making it a little bit loose, giving it more play. With each strike, you're going to get different types of variances in the offset nature of that particular strike. But this one right here is quite nice, very spicy. And it's sold for $50, guys. 8 bids. This one was bid up as a traditional auction. What a beautiful coin. And it gives you a little perspective on what could really be found out there. A $20 bill here, even a $5 bill here on this coin, and a $50 bill, and a $100 bill. We have a number of those here in the show. A lot of C notes and $50 type finds are flying around here in the last few weeks. And here's another one that we could add to this list. All right, now this one's actually pretty cool. I like this one. It's a dollar bill. It's got that little piece of paper sitting there. Again, if you want to do yourself a favor and take the note out of the holder and not obscure actual areas of the note, so that way we could all see what it looks like in its totality, would be the best auction practice to adhere by. Because we don't know what the series date is. I mean, I know. I see James Baker as the Secretary of Treasury, which leads me to believe that this is like a 1985. But if you read the little thing right there, it says overprint on back, inverted value. And it has like a number of different types of like valuations of that note. So let's see what he's talking about. So what we have here, and it wasn't designated as such on the listing, is actually a full 100% front to back wet ink transfer of the third overprint, which is quite unique. We don't see these quite that often. Usually it's going to be a wet ink transfer of a front to back or a back to front of the main base design of the note, but never usually of the overprint. So the big reason why this happens is that the impression cylinder, which pulls the subject sheet up to the intaglio print of the printing plates, actually had some remnants of ink. All right. So at one point, the impression cylinder made contact with the plates with no sheet in there. It's kind of like, in coin terminology, kind of like a die clash. Clashes happen when the dies strike against each other without a blank planchet or a coin in there to strike. Therefore, the design devices of the obverse die transfers onto the reverse die and vice versa, leaving what is usually a permanent type of occurrence on coins. On notes, the ink on the impression cylinder after a few printings will end up disappearing over time. or it gets cleaned up by a BEP associate. So this particular note, this thing is impressive, ended up selling for $259.51 with 11 total bids on this. Lots of activity. I would assume that this one will probably end up in a graded holder at one point. It is certainly deserving of it, and they'll probably enhance the value about 2x. All right. So again, not something. I mean, this is kind of like a kind of funny occurrence where, you know, there is an exception to the rule. This is a note that should be in a holder, but it's not. But by golly, it just shows you the pure power of just selling something raw. You still obtain a lot of money for it. Now, the next one that we have here is a Lincoln Memorial set. We can tell that it is a 1993, although it doesn't really show too well here. The seller did provide a little bit better close-up. That looks pretty good, you know, so we'll just go with 1993 because the seller said so. But what we have here is a coin that was struck through a later stage cap die. I would probably guess that it is a very late stage, because you're beginning to see more of the design details punch through that razor-thin cap die that's stuck to the obverse die on here, especially when you're able to see the date and Liberty. That's really not easy to do at any stage of a cap die strike. This particular coin ended up selling for $32.99. Keep in mind, this is a copper-coated zinc-in. So generally errors of this particular era of composition is not nearly as valuable as the pre-1982 coppers. So keep that in mind. But still a really cool coin here. Speaking of cool, I like the presentation on this one. And you know me, I'm not a proponent of taking pictures in 2x2 cardboard holders because it obscures a lot of things. Plus, you have kind of a false sense of the surfaces of the coin. You do get glare on certain occasions, although the seller did a really good job on this one. The pictures are a little bit out of focus, and that's really my only gripe. But this is a 1999 Philadelphia Jefferson nickel with an apparent rotated dies error. So when this coin is turned like normal, like north to south orientation, or what they call a coin turn, you're supposed to have a complete 180 degree right side up, kind of look at the coin. So Monticello would be it would be oriented correctly when you flip the coin over. However, this one is rotated by about 65 degrees clockwise, and the reason why I say about 65 degrees is, check that out. The seller used, and this is probably the second time that I've seen a die rotation guide, which is really just a sheet of paper. This particular one's laminated, and it looks really cool. A little shout out, by the way, to Raw Collectibles. If you're looking to obtain something like this, they do sell them, and I'm sure it's very affordable. But yeah, they use this for gauging the actual degrees factor on there. Plus it has CCW, which is counterclockwise, and then you also have clockwise as well. It's just a handy little tool. I'd probably recommend getting one of these if you're really into coin roll hunting, because rotated die errors are big money. They can be, depending on the denomination and the grade of the coin. It can mean a lot. This one right here is sold for $39.99. I'm willing to bet that you guys won't overlook these anymore, because that is quite a bit of guap, for sure. A lot of money to be made with these, and not a lot of people actually take the time to flip the coins over. I've had 2 or 3 people say, "Oh yeah, it takes way too much time." I'm like, where's the rush? You gotta enjoy the hobby, If you want to really learn, then you gotta slow your roll and really do a really complete job at looking for some of the neat stuff that can be found here. The next one that we have here, of course, you guys know that my favorite error are cud die breaks, which is what we have here on this 1974D Lincoln Memorial. The coin is just lights out, a beautiful full red example. You can see the cud die break as a raised blob right there by the word trust. As a matter of fact, it even covers the letter T, the second T on the word trust. But yeah, a piece of the die had fallen out, and that's just due to wear and tear when it strikes subsequent coins. The metal flow actually goes into that empty pocket where the die had cracked and chipped and fell out, creating this raised feature you see here. This one sold for $69.39 with 7 bids, which is impressive considering the size of the cud. It's not one that will blow you away, but I think the condition really did a huge solid on this one, therefore attributing to a just really, really nice sale. Now here's another one of those wet ink transfers. This time it's a partial back-to-front wet ink transfer. So as far as legitimacy is concerned with these, you want to make sure that the wet ink transfer in question is mirrored, all right? You can see the word America is backwards, which is on that green print from the reverse. It is backwards. That's what you want to see. You want everything to be backwards. If they're not backwards, then it's fake. You're not going to find one that doesn't have the backwards print. But this is actually a very pretty looking note. It's in really good shape. Probably more of a high-end, about uncirculated type of note. This one right here is sold for $117.31. 28 bids strong. Impressive. Here's a funny looking kind of perspective on taking these photos. And again, that's more of a detriment to taking photography of coins in a 2x2 holder. You can even see it here on this kind of like 3/4 turn appearance of the shot. Some of that glare right here at the bottom of the coin. But this is a 1956D Lincoln Wheat Cent, a very premium type grade of the FS501 RPM. Of course, marquee cherry picker's guide variety. They're quite common in any other grade other than BU like this one here. And that's the big reason why that this one sold for $152.15. I've sold probably like 12 of these in the last month for $20 shipped. As a matter of fact, I gotta put more of them up, in case you guys are interested. You guys are interested because I keep selling out of them, within days. And I do have a number of them left. Finds I've come across over the course of 15, 20 years of hunting through wheat cent bags. But no BU level type coins like this, otherwise I wouldn't be selling them for $19.99 shipped. They would all be $150 like this one. Now here's one I've talked about on a few occasions. It's a good time to kind of revisit it. Is it still a strong seller? This is the 2022 piece Sally Ride American Women Quarter with the phenomenal die clashing or clash dies. You can actually see a little bit right here by the ear, which I've never really noticed before, but it is there. But yeah, take a look at all the arrows provided by the seller, and you'll see exactly what you're supposed to look for. Again, this is one of the stronger examples. Used to be like a $25 to $30 coin on any day of the week. This one right here is sold for $20. So I would say the pricing has held up really well. Has it bottomed yet? Not sure. But I can tell you this for sure. Supply is dwindling of this particular error. I'm not seeing nearly as many as I used to. And the ones that I am seeing are pretty well circulated at this point. Here's just a really neat off-center 1981 Lincoln Memorial Cent. We don't know if it's a P or a D mint, but yeah, we'll just assume it's a Philadelphia mint, seeing as how that's where a lot of these type of errors come from. This one's off-center by about 50-55%, give or take. Great mid-state example, probably good for a date set. $37.95 with 18 bids. Excuse me. We got more currency. Currency was pretty well represented this week. How about this 1969 $1 bill? Before I even flip the note over to see the back, check out the serial number. You see what I see? Yeah, I see a different number in there. The second number in the serial number, you have a 7 on one and an 8 on the other. Yeah, they're supposed to be the same. This is what they call a mismatched serial number. This is something that was pretty prevalent during the 60s and 70s. They really did not care about quality control at that time at the BEP, but yeah, beauties like this do make their way out into circulation. You can even find them on 1976 $2 bills, and guess what? We even see them on brand spanking new 2017 A series of $1 and $5 bills with that new LEPE press that they're using. They're getting all sorts of like things worked out kink-wise. But they just can't help themselves. They're sitting there printing these things, and they're just laying them free out into circulation with some pretty funky results. So this one right here sold for $362.50. Man, have these things shot up in value. 24 bids altogether. I remember buying these for like $150 5 years ago. I purchased a few of them, still have them in my collection, so it might be a good time to move them maybe? I don't know, we'll see. Here's another pretty good error. Yeah, a little bit out of focus, but it's fine. 1969 B $1 bill with a overprint that is shifted and misaligned to the right by like a half a mile. I mean, this thing sticks out like a sore thumb. But yeah, one thing that I will know condition-wise, there is some rusty staple stains on the node, which does affect the grade quite a bit. It's not nearly as desirable. If it did not have it, it would be better. The back of the note showing the staple rust going through the paper. This one sold still. Again, don't discount these. They're still worth a measurable amount of cash. $139.38 with 18 bids. And yeah, the note is really well weathered. So this was a good money move to sell this to a collector. All right, so our feature coin of the week is going to be this well-loved Bicentennial Quarter. Please note, it is a Denver minted example, but you guys see what I see? Take a look at the obverse of the coin. Lots of really strong die clashing. But before I go to the close-ups of the clashing, look at the reverse. There's virtually no clashing whatsoever on there. You might find a little thing or two here and there, but that's it. Like right here above the drummer boy's hand, between Unum and the hand right here, you can see a little bit. That's really the only area that I do see some clashing on the reverse. But check this out. You can see the clashed flame of that torch right here under Washington's chin going into the word we. That's neat. Along with this star here right at the throat. Couple stars. You can see the U right here, which is on the bridge of Washington's nose along with some other stuff. This is an impressive coin for not being a mint state example. A couple more stars. Here's the one by the throat, and then one in front of Washington's mouth. Yeah, I've seen probably 3 or 4 of these over the course of the last like 5 years. And boy, they're neat. Every time one comes up, it's hard not to look at it because of how strong it is. I mean, you either see no clashes whatsoever on these, or you see some of the most powerful die clashes that you will ever lay eyes on. There's kind of like no middle ground to these things. So all in all, I mean, this was a coin that sold for an easy C note. This is a $100 sale on eBay. I would imagine that in much better grades, this thing would be like shooting up to the moon, as a way of putting it. But you know, something to look out for. Bicentennial errors of any sort, even from like minor die chips and curved clips and things like that, surprisingly are still like $20 to $30 coins, and then they go up from there. The sky is kind of the limit, because this is like one of the, still to this day, most popularly pulled out of change collectibles. It's kind of like the earliest form of a commemorative before the Statehood Quarter series came out. This is a good looking coin. Here's the 1953 D over D RPM, one of the mainline RPMs to find during the 50s. Cherry Picker's Guide variety, it's the FS501. You can see the secondary D is punched westward of the primary on there. Again, really nice, good looking coin. It's got some circulation wear. Sold for $16.90. Will never be to the level of the 56D over D, even though they're just like two very impressive coins. But I would not shy away from actually holding on to these. This is a nice one. More Lincoln Sent Love, featuring this coin here, which looks like it has two Lincoln Memorials on it. But what we have here is the earliest stage of a coin that was struck through a cap die. As a matter of fact, the cap die is so early stage that you actually have a full mirrored brockage right on the face of the coin. Impressive. You don't see these too often because it doesn't take too many strikes to flatten out the devices on that cap die to where it's really worn and weathered, and you begin to get more of the devices of the die showing onto the host coins than you do an actual brockage. So very, very nice. You can see everything's mirrored as it should look. This one right here is sold for $207.90 with 33 bids. Brockages in the error world are impressive. They're valuable, and people want them. People want them all day long in just about any conceivable grade. Now, this is an interesting one here. This is actually a 2021 Denver Washington crossing the Delaware. No, we don't have any crown die chips to speak of, but you can see some missing digits in the date. All right, along with some weakness here at the bottom of Washington's bust. Yeah, there was a globulus of grease on the die in that particular area. Probably the dies that filled into the numbers of the date. Therefore creating this weakness you see here. $51.40. Oh man, I'm just laughing at myself because this is just, bonkers. 14 bids, by the way. So there were a number of people kind of duking it out to own this one. But pretty interesting. I've seen some pretty gnarly strike throughs on this design a quarter, and it's going to be as popular as the drummer boy that we saw a few slides ago. So really do embrace these coins. The more unique the error, the more that they're going to be worth. Now, this one's not particularly strong, but it's worth noting that there is a number of these newer Lincoln Shield Cents. This one specifically is a 2021 P. Struck through a little bit of grease on the dies, and this is what you get here. A little bit of weakness in areas on the front and back of the coin. This one sold for $32.97 with 11 bids. Not too bad because it is not the strongest I've seen of this particular error. Here is a broad-struck 1969D Lincoln Memorial Cent. A pleasing looking coin. I'm willing to bet this is not a particularly common date as well of this error. These are widely collected by date along with the off-center strikes. So there is going to be a few people interested in something like this. Whoops. So, yeah, you got a glimpse of the next coin. It's a beauty, right? But getting back to this one here, it sold for $32.30. So it's a pretty solid market for this. Seems to be the norm for these 60s and 70s dates. But there you go, 1916 Buffalo Nickel. This one is a gorgeous, very nice, high-graded example. Yeah, this is definitely a two-feather as it was pitched onto the eBay listing, but you'll see that the third feather was pretty well abraded away or over-polished here in this section. These are in the Cherry Picker's Guide. These are widely collected. This one right here is at FS402. Oftentimes you'll find these in much lower grades, and they still sell for $15-20. So you can imagine that in a much higher grade, this one, by the way, is not graded, but it is in some sort of plastic holder, like an airtight or something. Still managed to reel in $125.25 with 21 bids. Again, the market for these types of varieties within the Buffalo Nickel series is particularly strong right now. And same with this one, although it's not nearly as impressive. The grade is, though. This is a very, very nice high-end specimen. 1916, again, another Philly coin with the missing F initial. You can actually see maybe just a slight impression there. But this one, I guess, passes the sniffer test for that. Again, this is another Cherry Picker's Guide variety. This is the FS401. Sold for $74.52 with 9 bids. So much like the dime that we saw earlier, way earlier in the show, this is a 1977 Washington Quarter with misaligned dies. So you can see the front is pretty well all center. The back of the coin is perfectly centered, although you do have weakness in a certain area where there is quite a bit of misalignment. So half of the date is missing, but you can tell it's a 77. And it looks to be a Denver as well. It's got a little mint mark there. They didn't put P mint marks on 1977 quarters. This one right here is sold for $28. There you go. A pretty reasonable amount of cash for this. Now, this is an off-center. However, check that out. A Denver, 1999 Pennsylvania. I can't imagine that this is a common coin to find. And I know a few statehood quarter error collectors. This one was probably targeted pretty early on. Although I kind of feel like maybe the final price wasn't as ambitious as it normally is. This one right here sold for $33.99 with 12 total bids. I've seen coins like this sell for like $50-$60 all day long. And being that it's a Denver, where you don't traditionally see these kind of just out-of-pocket type of errors, yeah, you'd figure there'd be a lot of people interested in this one that collect into this type of error set. But yeah, pretty cool. $34 sale. Can't complain about that. All right, probably not a very, like strong error for this particular type coin. This is an 1853 braided hair, it looks like, or coronet head, large cent. And this one right here has as noted by the seller as having misaligned dies, which, by the way, on these older, type of coins, they were quite prominent. So, you can see quite a bit of a lip here on the right side of the front of the coin, and then, the back is pretty decent. A little bit thicker here on this side. Nothing too crazy. Yeah, but minor errors like this, it can really detract from the overall value of a coin from this era. But still, this is a $49.95 sale here, so not too bad. And the coin's not perfect. It does have a little bit of carbon spotting on the front, and then kind of hard to tell if maybe the back had a little bit of cleaning done to it. The redness is a little unnatural here. It's not the most impressive, but this 1983 Lincoln Memorial does indeed have a little bit of a cut die break there at the bottom of the obverse. So you can see it there at the base of Lincoln's bust, connecting the rim going up to the bust. So that is indeed a cut. This one right here, $15.99. That is kind of like one of the least, kind of like money-wise, that's the least expensive form of cut that you'll find. Maybe save for the statehood quarter series of cuts, like on a West Virginia. Those are like $8 to $10 because they're just really unbelievably common. But small, tiny cuts like this that don't really affect any of the date or the words, the motto, liberty, anything like that. It's just really minor. So not too bad, $16. And given its condition, I would have traded up for that all day long. And then finally, we're going to end it off, of course, with a very, very nice $100 bill. 1988 is the series date on this one. So really a quick little note on the front of this note, yeah, no pun intended. The serial numbers look okay. There's nothing fancy about them. There is a little bit of a pencil writing of this left side here. It looks like a number 4. Saw this quite a bit back in the day. And, yeah, there is nothing really of note. Some would say, well, what about these little ink lines here? Well, yeah, that's minor. It could be a little bit of like an oversaturation of the ink and then just a quick smear. It's nothing too crazy, but the back of the note is where all of the goodies are at. So if you look at the very left side of the note, you'll see an omission of print. Now, based off of how it's just like a quick, abrupt cutoff of that area, this is what I think is a board break error, which happens when there's a crack or a break in the impression cylinder. Which again, the impression cylinder pulls the sheet up to the intaglio print of the printing plates. So when there is a chunk of the impression cylinder missing, it's not going to apply the suitable pressure to that spot on the note, therefore leaving a pretty sizable void. I've seen them a whole heck of a lot bigger, but this one's pretty nice. And the fact that it's on a $100 bill makes this a much more spectacular error than it should be. I find a lot of these on 5s, 10s, and 20s. They're in this particular era. So, yeah, pretty amazing. This type of error is similar to a cud die break on coins, because if a piece of the die falls out, you're not going to get any sort of devices struck in that area. Okay, same with a board break error on currency. Same difference. But yeah, pretty cool for not being graded. This one ended up selling for $300, which is the perfect kind of market for this. 3x face. Of course, if this was like a $20 bill, it would probably still be like a $200 to $300 note. So the smaller the denomination, the more money you make. Just because it's a $100 bill doesn't necessarily grant it more value back. But this is quite a rare error, and a really neat one, as a matter of fact. Well, that's going to wrap it up for your Wednesday edition of the PCMR. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I certainly did. It was awfully talkative today, because we talked about a lot of new coins that we haven't seen on a PCMR in quite some time. So would love to hear your thoughts. Was any one of these particularly captivating you? Go ahead, post it below. Let me know what your favorite is. And hopefully a video like this will give you guys inspiration to go out there and pound the pavement, hunt your own treasures, and then you can tell me all about it, because I live vicariously through your guys' exploits, as always. It's a lot of fun to hear all of the big wins that you guys do and find. Well, that's it. I'm Sean with BlueRidgeSilhound. You guys take care. Happy hunting. And I guess I'll see you Saturday for the next PCMR. I'm enjoying these holiday PCMRs, by the way. A lot of good, cool stuff coming out of the works. Take care.